Prime Minister and Finance Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says all debt obligations, including foreign currency debts due for 2020, settled. Government expects an economic growth of 6%. Individuals who violate restrictions by leaving the Western Province will be subjected to self-quarantine with effect from today. Prisoners at the old Bogambara prison staged a protest demanding authorities to carry out PCR tests on all the prisoners. Number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country reached 15,350. 200 houses in Nicobarati damaged due to strong winds. Georgia to conduct an audit of the 2020 presidential election, recounting by hand the millions of ballots cast in the state. Hello there and welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. You're joining me, David Paldano. Now on to headline making stories this afternoon. A group of prisoners at the old Bogambara prison in Kandy staged a protest by climbing onto the roof of one of the prison buildings, demanding authorities to carry out PCR tests on all the prisoners.
Speaking to Newsfirst, Prisons Commissioner General Tushara Upuldeniya said the protest was staged at a time when PCR tests were already being carried out on prisoners. He added that 100 to 150 inmates are subjected to PCR testing on a daily basis at prisons.
Another 5 deaths due to COVID-19 were reported yesterday, bringing the total number of COVID-19 deaths reported in the country to 46.
A 63-year-old male from Imbulgoda who died while receiving treatment at the Apeksha hospital in Maharagama was identified as the 46th COVID-19 victim yesterday. The Ministry of Health said he was identified as a COVID-19 patient after performing a post-mortem PCR test. The Department of Government Information said exacerbation of leukemia and a complication of the respiratory system are the immediate causes of death. The 45th COVID-19 death in Sri Lanka was reported yesterday and was a 68-year-old female from Maligavatta who had passed away at her residence. According to the Department of Government Information, the cause of death was ruled as exacerbation of coronavirus, resulting in high blood pressure and eventual cardiac arrest. A 48-year-old resident of Colombo 11 also passed away upon admission to the Colombo National Hospital. The post-mortem PCR test performed on the deceased identified that he had tested positive for the virus. It was revealed that he died of a heart attack caused by complications of the COVID-19 infection. A 45-year-old resident of Kalania died of a heart attack caused by COVID-19 complications while receiving treatment at the Hambantota District Hospital. A PCR test conducted on an 80-year-old resident of Panadura also revealed that the victim died of a heart attack caused by the COVID-19 infection. Accordingly, the number of confirmed COVID-19 patients reported from the country reached 15,350 after identifying another 626 COVID-19 cases yesterday. Another 646 recovered COVID-19 patients were discharged from hospitals yesterday. The total number of recoveries currently stand at 10,183. The Health Ministry said 5,121 active patients are currently receiving treatment.
The Deputy Director of the Borala Medical Research Institute, Dr. Jayaruwan Pandara, expressed his ideas on the COVID-19 infected patients in the country.
ඊයේ දවසේ වාර්තා වෙච්ච ප්‍රමාණය 500 ඉක්මවනවා. මේ වන විට ලෝකයේ More than 1.2 million people have died globally due to COVID-19. This can be considered as the highest number of deaths caused due to a pandemic within a short period. That is why we always brand COVID-19 as a deadly virus disease. 5% of the people who were subject to random PCR tests within the Colombo city limits yesterday had tested positive for the virus. If this is the case, there may be several undetected patients within the Colombo city limits. It is estimated that there are more than 30,000 undetected patients. Although we assume that there are about 15,000 patients across the country, we will be able to detect more patients if we increase testing.
Restrictions were imposed on leaving the Western Province since last evening. These restrictions will be in effect until midnight on the 15th of this month. Buses have been barred from entering and exiting the Western Province midnight on the 15th of this month. The Railways Department has said that trains would be allowed to enter but not exit the Western Province until Sunday. Accordingly, trains leaving the railway stations in Beliatta, Kandy, Mahava, Puttalam and Avisavella are expected to reach Colombo Fort today. Trains have been allowed to commute passengers from Colombo to Alutgama, Ambepussa, Kochikade and Avisavella that are the final destinations in the Western Province. Meanwhile, our correspondent reported that roadblocks had been set up near the Benthara Bridge bordering the southern and western provinces. Accordingly, our correspondent said these roadblocks have been set up to prevent any attempts to enter or exit the Western Province. Roadblocks have been set up along the main road connecting the Sabaragamo and Western provinces. Authorities said that only individuals attached to essential service sectors would be allowed to pass through the checkpoints. Our reporters observed that people had gathered at the main bus stand in Colombo Fort to avail themselves of public transport services. This was due to the lack of awareness about the current restrictions that are in place. The police have warned that individuals who breach the restrictions imposed on leaving the Western Province will be subjected to self-quarantine. Police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana said that all police stations in the country have been informed about this decision. Restrictions have been imposed on leaving the Western Province. Accordingly, people in the Western Province cannot travel to other region under any circumstances. We wish to inform all individuals temporarily residing in the province to remain at their places of lodging for 4 days starting from today. Public transport services will not operate to commute passengers from the Western Province to other areas. However, there will be no restrictions to enter the Western Province. But individuals who enter the province will be allowed to leave only next Monday. Previously, the police issued a circular allowing employees of 112 institutions to report to work using their service identity cards despite these restrictions. However, that circular will not be valid any further. Individuals attached to essential service sectors such as the health, water, electricity, media, food and pharmaceutical industries will be allowed to pass through the roadblock by producing their service identity cards. Others will not be permitted to exit the province. Travelling within the Western Province can continue to take place. However, it will not apply to individuals who are in areas that are under lockdown. They must remain indoors at all times. If they feel ill, they will be allowed to visit the hospital without being required to produce any permit. They will be permitted to visit their nearest hospital by any mode of transport.
වහාම රෝහලක් වෙත යාමේ අවස්ථාව තියෙනවා කිසිම බලපත්‍රයක් අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ ළඟම තියෙන රෝහලට යාමට පුළුවන් තමුන් කැමති ප්‍රවාහන මාධ්‍යයක් උපයෝගී කරගෙන.
Meanwhile, police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana said approximately 600 police officers have tested positive for COVID-19. He said another 3,000 police officers are currently under quarantine. Approximately 600 police officers have tested positive for COVID-19. Many media reports are currently being published in this regard. But I would like to clarify that the police officers who have tested positive for the virus are those who are currently at quarantine centres. At present, approximately 3,000 police officers are at quarantine centres. The positive cases are identified through the PCR tests performed at these centres on a daily basis. I would like to clarify that no police officer has contracted the virus by carrying out their daily duties. There are approximately 87,000 police officers across the island who are carrying out their duties to curb the spread of the virus.
වළක්වා ගැනීමට අවශ්‍ය නිසි පියවර අරගෙන ඔවුන්ගේ ඒ කටයුතු ඒ ආකාරයෙන් සිදු කරනු ලබනවා.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka police said today that requested everyone who entered the Manning Market workers to send their details to the following numbers if they have not undergone PCR tests. And the numbers are 0718 591 555, 0718 591 551 or 0718 591 554. The names, address, national identity card number should be sent via SMS to these numbers for PCR testing to be made available for Manning Market workers. Meanwhile, the Meteorological Department has said that the western, Sabaragamuwa, central, southern and northwestern provinces will receive heavy showers exceeding 100 millimeters today. The Meteorological Department has predicted that showers may occur in the northern and eastern provinces and the Hambantota district today. Today's weather forecast showed that showers or thunder showers are likely to occur in most parts of the country during the day. Accordingly, the general public is urged to take adequate precautions to minimize damages that may be caused by lightning. Meanwhile, several houses in Nikavaratia were damaged due to strong winds that blew across the area last evening. The Disaster Management Centre said that at least 200 houses had sustained partial damages due to the inclement weather. 8 houses had, however, been completely damaged. Now on to one of your headline-making stories. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa told Parliament the government settled all the foreign currency debts due for the year 2020.
Honourable Speaker, a monumental effort has been made towards the management of the corona pandemic, even with the limitations arising from the votes on accounts coupled with the weak budget and economy which we inherited. Nevertheless, the government has already spent around 70,000 million for the identification of patients, quarantining activities, random testing and related welfare activities. Daily PCR testing capacity for the diagnosis of the disease has been increased to an average of 7,500 to 10,000 tests per day, with each test costing around 6,000 rupees, with the daily expenditure exceeding almost 50 million rupees. The government also spends a sizable amount for the food and welfare of those on 14-day quarantine. Honourable Speaker, the economy and the financial position passed down to us is pathetic. If I may begin with the income-expenditure gap, the budget deficit, which my government brought down to 5.7% of gross domestic product in 2014, has increased to over 9.6% of the GDP by 2019. In fact, this is more than the budget deficit recorded of 7% when I assumed office in 2005. From 2020 onwards, annually, foreign debt servicing amounts to approximately 4,200 million US dollars. I am happy to report to this House that we have settled all debt obligations, including the foreign currency debt dues for the year 2020. I also propose to increase the borrowing limit stated in the appropriation bill by 180 billion rupees. It is the responsibility of our government to reduce the income-expenditure gap to 4% of GDP by 2025, which now stands at nearly 10%, and to reduce the overall debt to GDP to 75% of GDP within the next 4 years. We have to not only convert a negative economy to a positive high economic growth rate of 6%, but such growth should result in the eradication of poverty. I wish to remind this House that this is the vision of the Vistas of Prosperity policy presented by the President. Honourable Prime Minister, in the post-independence period, 2020 recorded as the year in which the highest number of debt was obtained by Sri Lanka. This is without our approval.
අපේ අනුමැතියකුත් නැතුව after 73 years of independence biggest debt that you have added on is in this year. ඔබ ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන මේ විසර්ජන පනත අනුව
The appropriation bill makes it clear the debt is to increase further to 2,650 billion rupees, which is another record high. What have you done with the money? Can you tell this House what was done with the record high debt obtained this year? Ask the people what the government has done for them. If you can show us, we will accept it. The port is not in operation and shares are not traded. You cannot conceal these facts using coronavirus as an excuse. The collapse began in January 2020 before COVID-19 surfaced.
ජනවාරි මාසේ 2020 කොරෝනා එකට කලින්.
And with that, we wrap up lunchtime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst team, I'm David Paldano. Take care.